Hey everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of This Woman Can. And my guest this week is Pauline Joseph, as I talking to women more in the science, tech, STEM fields. Pauline is from Trinidad via the way of Barbados, or grew up in both, but we'll get into that as we go through the interview. So Pauline, hello, and thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so ecstatic to speak to another person as an extrovert. So being under lockdown, I welcome these opportunities.
What gave it away? Right. So thanks for joining me, as I said. So let's kick off by you sharing with us a little bit about your journey and how you got to where you are today when it comes to your career and the work you do.
Right. So I am the owner of AC Marketing Caribbean. It's a digital marketing agency is what the world will see it as, but I see us more of content creators, Caribbean content creators. And we have clients all over the Caribbean and sometimes all over the world, depending on the time of the year. And what I have been able to do is create remote working scenarios. So I've been doing this for the last 10 years and I've never wanted an office. It's never been part of the plan. Okay. And I kind of stumbled onto this career because I didn't have the opportunity to extend my schooling beyond Combermere. Shout out to my fellow Combermereans. The agents will know what I mean. And what happened was I kind of had to figure it out. You know, my parents are still alive. They did what they had to do. Yeah. But guidance wasn't one of their forte, neither was their children. I know it sounds bad, but it is what it is. It's the past, whatever. Yeah. But anyways, Facebook was something that I gravitated towards. And when I started this business, I still remember people like, why would you even pay anybody to go on Facebook? And they eventually did. And what I was able to do is learn, adapt. I remember back in the day, I would charge the equivalent of like $200 US a month to manage a Facebook page. I scoff at that now. But it was purely through survival, to be honest. And I also saw the opportunity to use social media to reduce advertising spend, which, by the way, I thought was going to be so easy. You know, I thought that telling businesses that I'm going to save them so much money and achieve what they want would have been a top seller. It's all a lie, guys. It's all a lie. So I don't know if that's a great introduction to what we do and why I'm here.
So how did you get into that? You didn't roll out of bed thinking this is what I'm going to do. So how did you get into that aspect of it? What sparked your interest?
Well, it's funny when I look back at it now. Each element, each part of my work experience brought me here. When you look at my LinkedIn profile, which I'm very active on the LinkedIn profile, it's sort of a mismatch of industries. My friends always laugh and ask, what have you not done? So I have been a bartender. I feel like that's automatic.
I've done that way.
I used to live in Norbury. I actually was a bartender in Brixton. That's a whole other story.
Okay.
I worked at BMW Park Lane as an administrator. That, I believe, was a pivotal point for my ability, my career, because I was able to showcase that I can be a Caribbean person on a global scale and execute. Because I actually came in for a maternity leave individual, and I made her job easier when she came back. Right. She knew that. She actually made a comment and then a card. So from there, when I moved back to Barbados, I started as a sales manager of a bakery, a very popular, well, some people would say the second most popular. For the Bajans out there, it's the best salt bread out there. You all know who I mean. And it did not end well because I saw an opportunity to invest in marketing. I saw the opportunity to go beyond just going into supermarkets and going on the shelves, merchandising and all these little things. I said, let's invest in a website. Let's invest in a Facebook page, which they still have up to this day. And they reached out to me a couple months ago, funny enough. And then I realized it wasn't going anywhere because it's that old school way of thinking.
Yeah.
And I didn't necessarily have a big plan. I just said, this is not for me. I could still hear my mother now. Why would you just leave a job? All you young people. you're just because you don't like something doesn't mean you can't, go to work every day. You don't have to like your job. Well, I proved her wrong 10 years later. But yeah, so from there, I saw the opportunity and I registered the business, and my very first client, I still remember, was Banks Bay, Barbados. Okay. And from there, I learned how to create content and manage individuals.
Fabulous. So you talked about the zigzag journey because, the road to greatness is, well, they want to say it's paved with good intentions, but it's never straight, So what has been, can you describe for us, Pauline, one of the biggest challenges you've faced? Or how you tackle challenges, because you alluded to one there, obviously trying to change people's mindsets and stuff. But how do you face challenges, and how do you learn the lessons from them?
For AC marketing, I think one of my biggest challenges, and I can say that in hindsight now, was the idea of working hard. I thought that's what I needed to do. I thought I needed to present myself in a particular way, showcase what is possible, and that's all that mattered. But it's interesting when you are fed a lot of North American content. There's one guy in particular, Gary V. I've seen him live, and it's obviously, it feels inspirational.
Yeah.
But then when you get back on a plane and go home, it's an entirely different world. And for me, the challenge has been the type of conversations. I thought 10 years later it would have changed.
Right.
So the biggest challenge for me now, not for me, back then, not now, but back then, was not knowing when to say, okay, this person is not the right fit for my business.
Yeah.
I think I was always knocking on the door and going back in hopes, which is, I think, a trait I learned from my mother. She has the will of I don't even know, just like the strength there to just keep going, And I thought all I needed to do is keep going and keep, knocking on as many doors as possible and not necessarily working smart. I will never forget one of my managers. I used to work in a construction company, rentals, and she once told me, she said, you work very hard, because I was there till 10. I was learning how to do QuickBooks, because I just always felt as though I was never enough because I did not have college or university experience.
Yeah.
So I always was working very hard. And she said to me, and this was actually a friend of mine through hockey, that's how I got the job. And she's like, you work hard, but you have to learn how to work smart. And at the time when she said it to me, I was angry. I was like, this bitch, how could she do? And now I look back at it, and that was one of the best things she could have ever told me. And I think that would be one of the biggest challenges I had starting the business.
Yeah. So when you talk about working smart, I think I've got an idea what you're talking about, my interpretation. But for the listeners, for the viewers, tell me what you mean by working smart, how that made a difference for you.
Okay, so I'm going to get a little, probably rub a few wrong shoulders with political correctness here. But people see me in a specific way, right? And I may have an idea of who I am. I know who I am, and if you decide to invest in time, you'll figure that out. Like, if there's one thing about me, I'm pretty authentic. I don't know how to hide. My friends always tell me I have verbal diarrhea, not non-verbal diarrhea, because you could see it in my face. And what happens is people don't understand that they make biased decisions, right? And I think the denial of that is one of the biggest problems.
Yeah.
So I ask specific questions now. I'm very specific with my questions. I've been able to create a system that I ask questions. I have a lot of automation involved as well, where I say, okay, cool, you're interested in my service. Let's break down what you need.
Yeah.
And if you have a broad idea, you're like, oh, well, I want to reach everybody. That's a red flag, right?
Yeah.
And then on top of that, the culture of the business, your understanding of what it means to be um, in your business and your customer. And then just to kind of close it off, which I was talking about the biases, I've had somebody tell me, this is a woman in a business decision making position. She was asking about kids because, I don't have any. Apparently, I am primed to have some, or I'm almost late to, so my parents are in demise, and so is the rest of society. And she said, don't worry, you'll eventually want. And people don't realize that from a subconscious level, what you've done is you've cut me off from opportunities, because we tend to hire people who look like us and do things like us. So you may think it's just a bypass or whatever, making joke, whatever, but chances are I will never get a job or contract from her because that's her mindset, right? And I have to be okay with that. But it took a while for me to get here.
Yeah. And I think those biases across, like you say, across a lot of things. I'm certainly working. Well, you've worked in the UK. I grew up and did most of my working life in the UK, and now in the Caribbean, I also see the biases I didn't think I would see in my naivety. I'd probably say my naivety, because having had such, I suppose, being a black woman in a white world, and air quotes, it's blatant in your face when you are being profiled or the biases are coming up. You think coming into a dominantly black country, you wouldn't experience those, but it's much different. It is, I was proven wrong.
I love what you say there, because that's a great conversation to have, right? Because I feel like when you know something is there, you tend to be able to work around it. So it's visible to you. So say, okay, cool, there's biases that exist. I'm going to work around it, or just evade it altogether and focus on this instead. Whereas there's a lot of microaggressions in the Caribbean, and it's something that I wish I knew, or maybe even if somebody told me, I probably would not have believed them. I still remember to this day when I figured it out, that it really doesn't matter how good I am. It's like when you watch those movies, it's like, no, things don't happen like that. Yeah, Janice, it kind of did for me. It was kind of weird. I was fighting for a contract, and I worked on this particular client for 6 months, or was it a year? I don't know. It was for a while. It was a global client. And we showed how well we did with comparison to, their competitors. We had evidence. And a local company was vying and saying, they didn't even have a replacement. They just thought that we weren't good enough because our prices were too high.
Right.
And but the older me would have fight down and reduce my price, but I knew my worth. I know my worth, right? And it took a decade of, in debt and doing all these different things and figuring out, I know what's out there as well. And we are much better than anything that's out there. And I went for a run, and I can remember I was running up Chancellor Hill. I can't remember what I was training for. I do triathlon, so I'm always training for something. And I was running, I said, why is it that I am getting such backlash for something that I've proven that I am good enough? And then it was like, oh, okay, you're the black woman in the room. I literally was the only black woman in the room. So it's something that I had to cope and realize, okay, this is an issue, and I need to figure out what I want out of this business and who I want to work for.
Absolutely. And I love how you touched on there about, because there's a level of confidence that comes with being knowing your worth and knowing when to say, no, this isn't for me, or this isn't the direction I want to go. And that is, it's not something you're born with. I think you have to take a few bruises and a few knocks along the way to realize, okay, I'm not compromising on this. This is not something I want to compromise on that. So what advice would you give to a woman who's thinking, wow, that's really confident. I wish I had a bit of that. Um, how would you advise a woman? What advice would you give to a woman who just wants to feel a little more confident and comfortable in taking the approach as she is?
The first thing I know out there, the first thing most people tell you is to have the right people around you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Unfortunately, I don't have that. I'm still searching for it. But if you don't have that option, I would say experience is a must, because one of the things that led me to that point was I spent 12 months. It was my only actual time in the corporate world in Trinidad, in a huge company
Right.
that gave me exposure to what other agencies were charging and what
Right.
exactly
Yeah.
their list of, okay, these are the services, and I knew what was out there.
Right.
So that type of information through experience, I've been down in the trenches. I mean, I think I was I probably make the trenches. So for me, it was experience and just being able to fail and survive and
Right.
come back again.
Right. Right. And that leads me very nicely into my next question when you talk about failure, because how has failure made a positive difference in your life?
Before I answer that, I need to preface this by saying,
Okay.
why, when I was struggling, when I would hear people say, I mean, failure is part of the journey leading towards it. I mean, I think even Beyonce has a song leading towards the failure. I'd be like, F you, what are you talking about? I can't even pay my rent. I have to go and stay by some friend's couch. What are you talking about? This is ridiculous, you know? And I think it's important for you to realize that don't always steer towards the motivational quotes, because that's not good for your mental health, right? I know it's important for you to lean in towards it because it's a goal. And one of the things is, when you're doing something new that nobody has ever done,
Mm.
you're going to bat up against so many different hurdles, walls, and just understand that that is part of the journey.
Yeah.
So when it comes to failure, wait, what was the question again? That preface was so long, sorry.
How has failure made a positive difference in your life?
Oh, right. So for me, I need to parallel it to my journey to learn to swim, right? I learned to swim 5 years ago. And when I look back at it now, I realize that the fear is part of the failure, but you have to be okay afterwards. So just do it anyway.
Yeah.
And for me, it has been a case of, okay, you survived that. You survived the 25-meter swim and you're still living. You know, you survived the 10 no's that companies gave you.
Mm.
That's okay. You know what the end goal looks like. You know what the finish line looks like. Just keep going, because they don't get it.
Yeah.
And for me, it has changed my mindset, because the idea of failure growing up has been this mind stopping, don't move, stay in your couch, turn off the lights, don't talk to anybody.
Yeah.
But it's genuinely an opportunity that you're gonna figure out eventually, just not when it happens.
and I'm glad you said that, because the one thing that really stood out for me, I've lived out here for 10 years now, 10 years. And yes, whilst I was growing up in the UK, I was always told you had to be 10 times better than anybody else because you're black, etc., etc. The usual tropes, we got that. And then you come out here, and I often, when it comes around CSEC time or exam time, and I see the level of pressure on children, and I hear they have got 18 straight A's, and I'm like, boy, did they have a life? Now I understand wanting, your children to be a success, but then there's, for that person at the top, there's how many umpteen who's been almost been deemed a failure, because you're not number one. And I've always seen that level of pressure. I always wondered how much that level of pressure plays out on children as they grow older, because they've been told they're a failure when you're looking at, wow, but you've done fantastically well, all those grades and all those passes. And sometimes I think the focus of to be the best at everything, and that failure is not an option, is a little more detrimental, because when you go in the real world, failure slaps you like a bitch. I mean, it comes hard, it comes fast. It doesn't matter what your background is, doesn't matter where you come from, it's gonna get you, and how we building up ourselves. And so until we've had that first failure, dare I say, and I've had many, do you learn how to build that resilience gene, and how to bounce back, and how, especially like now in this whole pandemic situation, where you look at how people are really struggling and don't know where to go. And I'm like you, my business has been digital for a while, since I started out of the corporate world, but I haven't panicked. And and he's been able to think, well, okay, this has happened, but there's an opportunity here somewhere, I just haven't spotted it, but I'm going to find it.
That's such a good point, because I've been asking a lot of small business owners in Trinidad, what are you doing? What's the plan? I spoke to a makeup artist, and obviously no one's going anywhere.
Yeah.
And it has the majority of responses has been sort of I don't know what I'm going to do, and I just found, that's because I've failed so many times, I'm excited by the pivoting of this.
Yes.
What does this mean for your business? How can you translate, because you have so many people attention span now online, because they're spending more time online. How can you translate your business even further? Because they're not coming into your store. But we don't have a society like that, because most people get opportunities through connections, not through actual working hard.
Yeah. And the minute you just said that, I was like, oh, then you could do this, you could do that. Automatically, that started flicking in my head what you could try. Now, it may not work the first time, but I'm going to find a way to make it work and learn from what didn't work, so I can turn it around. So yeah, like you say, the failure is positive mindset. It's something you definitely acquire. So Pauline, well, by the way, I'm loving this conversation, and the learning to swim thing, totally. I am 50 years old, and I always wanted to do a triathlon, but the water always freaks me out. I ride the bike, I can run marathons, but I get in the water and I just lose it, totally lose it. I did get over it. I think it was I'd lost a job at the time, and I did something, but I got comfortable, but then I've lost it again. So you think surrounded by water, I'd get in. You think surrounded by water, I'd get into it again. But I admire that. Especially did it 5 years ago. It's not like a child. It's just a big woman, an adult, getting over that fear. So I will take that under advisement and keep it, and use you as my motivator when I'm thinking about it.
I think, as you said, that also goes back into the question you asked about failure, right? So as a person who's grew up athletic, I've always been good at things when I now start, right? Completely crappy at the swimming. But what I've had to do is also become, I shouldn't say comfortable, also be understanding of the journey for being last every time I get out of the water in a triathlon event. Like that's just how it is, because all those people in front of me had an opportunity to learn since they were small. So their body already sorted, chances are they're not going to catch me on the bike, but I'm going to come out last in the water. And I have to say, okay, I'm moving towards something bigger and faster, but for now, this is just part of the journey. And I think sometimes we tend to get tied up with the people around us, and their journey is not yours. It's cliche, but it's true.
No, it's very true. When I started running, I know we're digressing a bit. When I started running, I'd say to Mum, I'm going to a race, and I'd come back to her, you didn't win? I'm like, Mum, my first marathon, I was doing my second leg, my second half of the marathon, when I could hear the winner coming in to win, because it was ran on the same track. I said, Mum, I'm not going to win, but my attitude is the race is against me, and I get the same medal, the same T-shirt, the same cup as the winner. So I'm good. So I totally understand what you mean again about, not looking around the other people. And I'm assuming you're a Strava person.
I am.
See, so we won't get again, but Strava segments, that's all I'm going to say. So
I have a few QMs, okay?
so I'm going to look for you. But anyway, so Pauline, if you had to start over from scratch, knowing what you know now, what would you do differently?
So I saw this question in a list, and I don't have the capacity to answer this question because I I, I just don't think it is. I don't like looking back. I don't know. Maybe
Okay.
it's an issue, my own mental issue. But looking back at stuff is just so weird because I am a combination of my environment and my choices. So I don't know. I guess I would probably harbor on the fact that hardworking is just not enough. I guess I don't even know. Sorry, I don't know. That doesn't answer your
Okay,
question.
okay. So let me ask you a question. Let me ask you this question then. No, you don't know how on the back, but what advice would you give your teenage self?
Oh wow. Gosh, at the risk of plagiarizing Steve Jobs, don't be, uh, I guess, don't be fooled by dogma.
Okay.
And it's okay to feel alone, although the room is filled with people. I grew up with 5 other siblings, and I've always felt like an outsider.
Okay.
And it's okay. It's okay to feel like that because it's not that you are wrong. It's just that they're not seeing what you're seeing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I like that. I like that. I really like that. And you touched on Steve Jobs there as a quote. So let me ask you, if you could choose a mentor, alive, dead, or whatever, who would it be and why?
Uh, I think it would be Arlene Dickinson. I actually saw her first on, is it Dragon's Den, the Canadian version.
Yeah. Yeah.
She is a business owner who runs an agency like me. And I like how she made the decisions that she did for the people that she supported and her mindset. So that would be right now because your
Yeah.
personality
Yeah.
and
Yeah. It
goals change.
changes.
But yeah, that would be the person.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. So, what are the 3 things have you learnt about yourself during your career?
Whew. I I feel like a majority of that is definitely has sort of uh concentrated itself during last year with the lockdown pandemic.
Yeah.
Um, so I would say that I I second guess myself a lot, and
Okay.
that is because of the overthinking. Um, and the independence is something that I had to create in order to survive. And it is something that I need to work on because just because I'm able to do it doesn't mean that I should. And the last thing is I learned that it takes me a long time to figure out that I'm good at something because I'm always trying to look for the next finish line. Sorry guys, but it's gonna get a lot of parallels to racing. But I'm always looking for something um bigger and better and never taking the time out to realize that I am enough right now.
Yeah.
And being able to focus on something. Because in the Caribbean, we tend to, I see it all the time in LinkedIn profiles. We have 5 and 6 different positions. And I don't know what we're searching for, but me, I kind of had to reflect on that. There's some childhood trauma there as well. And I think that's important to kind of stop and realize, okay, yes, you want to separate yourself from your business, but you are also your business. And these decisions are made from how you're brought up. So this is affecting your business. So how can you work on this so it's better for the business?
Yes.
And obviously deal with whatever issues that had growing up.
Fabulous, fabulous. So let's just talk and the work you do. So you know you've had a taste of corporate life. You've been an entrepreneur for a significant amount of time, far longer than me. So I'm learning from you. So what are the benefits, would you say, are the advantages of being an entrepreneur, maybe in the space you're in?
I would say, I'm a digital native and I see people use this word a lot, but I'm going to explain what that means. Anytime there's a problem, I look for technology to solve it first, not humans. Okay. And I think that has allowed me the flexibility and sort of the space to do things it would probably take 10 people to do. Yeah. And being in that space also has allowed me to manage my team so much better. So I've been able to learning on the go, managing people. I'm a people person. I've always been, I get my energy from engaging with people. But being able to manage them is different because you could like somebody, but they're not doing the job. So being in the space that I'm in has made me be able to measure their work much more easily. Right. And funny enough, during the pandemic, I had to let go somebody. And it was purely because of the work. So it was a hard one because she was with me from the beginning. But you could see the transitioning from the excitement from being with the job to just not wanting to do it anymore. Right. And it was only feasible because I could have seen it. It was visible. So there's not an opinion. It's actually there. So that's what it is.
Fabulous. And I like that. I definitely like that. So we're coming to the last couple of questions now. So I'll take you out of the hot seat shortly. So, and I probably know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Where would we find you on a Saturday morning at 10 o'clock?
I'm either cycling, running, or swimming, or both.
and what is it about triathlon? Because triathlon is on one of my bucket lists again, but it's the water issue. I got the marathons, all that kind of stuff, but fine. So, what is it about the what's the word? I'm not looking at expertise. The sport of triathlon, because that's three different disciplines. What is it about that excites you or interests you so much?
So first of all, as I mentioned before, I tend to want to keep looking for the finish line. But the fact that this has three disciplines, it's gonna be a while before I master all of these three, right? But it all started when I wanted to learn how to swim. So I played hockey, field hockey for, back in the day I could say half my life, but I can't say half my life now, like 15 years. And I got an injury, which, side note, if you have your kids out there playing sports, always do your research on the coaches and if you're warming up and stretching, because triathlon has changed my life when it comes to that. We're not taught on certain things. You just say, go and run, just go hard. And it's not working smart, working hard. So when the physiotherapist said, well, I think you need to stop, I was like, what? Blasphemous. No way, never. And then age came and I was like, where you going? So I decided, okay, on my bucket list has been to learn how to swim, but I am very goal oriented. So I will never forget the first time I wrote a list, I was 17 years old and it was like 20 things on this and the bottom of the list was a laptop, right? And it took a year and a half because I was going through some stuff, had to send my siblings to school. I was basically raising them. So it was like, little things here and there. So I'll never forget the day I crossed off that laptop, I realized I was addicted to list making. It is just the most amazing feeling. So I said, okay, I'm going to learn how to swim. And because I am a decent cyclist, I grew up cycling, I used to cycle around London all the time, actually. And I'm a decent runner because of hockey. I just need to figure out the swimming part and the in between transitioning. And since then, I've gone from feeling so amazing going across the 25-meter pool in YMCA in Trinidad to doing a 1900-meter swim in Shanghai in 2018 and finishing my first half Ironman.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. So then this leads on to this question then. What does success feel like to you?
Whew. So this question is heavy. I feel like this is a little therapy, Janice. Um, because I thought I knew what it was, and this pandemic has made me realize that I want to create content that moves people, drives them to do something positive.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've been making a fast food of content, making content to drive behavior for brands, which it's part of the ecosystem that we're in. I guess I have to be part of the problem before I'm part of the solution. But COVID has taught me that we're nothing without people. We are literally, we are so connected. Imagine this came from a tiny village in China. Like, if we don't know who we are now, we will never understand how connected we are. So if that is the case, it doesn't matter how much money I make if I become the next Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk. If people aren't affected in a positive way by what I'm doing, then I have to ask myself, why am I doing it?
Right.
So I really have a big question mark as to what success looks like, but it's never been about money for me.
Well, it's not so much look, the word is feel. And there's a difference.
True. I would say success, my dream for my business has been to build a company that shifts our mindset as to what it means to be employed. Right. So I've had clients. I mean, I jumped in a plane and I went to New Zealand. One of our clients was based out of New Zealand. We have a potential client coming out to Singapore, and content is something that can be created all across the world. And I would love to have more Caribbean-based content creators.
Yes.
To be able to employ them and say, listen, this whole working from home thing is not temporary. This is something that you can live. This is not a dream. Yeah. And it's difficult, but success would be for my business, and how it would feel like is saying, okay, I have, a group of content creators in Jamaica, Barbados, Antigua, Trinidad, and we're creating content that is globally accepted and also from a Caribbean perspective. So I would say that would, in the context of my business, that's how success looks like for me.
Fabulous. Fabulous. Thank you for that answer. And I'm going to take you out the hot seat a little bit. So Pauline, if persons want to know more about what you do or connect with you, how can they do that?
Well, LinkedIn, I'm pretty active there. Just search for my name, Pauline Joseph. My business is AC Marketing Caribbean, so you can go on the website. But for the most part, there's LinkedIn, and as well as we do I started the LinkedIn local chapter in the Caribbean, and we do a podcast called Live from the Caribbean. But I would say LinkedIn is the best place to find me.
So LinkedIn it is. So Pauline, that was my last question. I am taking you out of the hot seat. It's been fabulous speaking to you. I'm going to speak to you more because we have so many synergies. But thank you for taking the time out to talk to me and the audience and the viewers today. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. And for the women out there, I think now is the time more than ever for us to create little pockets of groups for ourselves and support ourselves, because for so long media has given us this picture, I mean, of women being catty and not being together.
Yeah.
And it's almost as if that became our truth. But I had to unlearn that. And I think it's impossible for us to do this alone. So let's just, support each other.
Fabulous. And you can do that by joining the This Woman Can community at www.thiswomancan.coach. There's a nice little plug. Thank you.